Your phone screen, it's a mirror, but it's showing you someone else's life. And there's this pressure now, this modern pressure, to measure yourself against what you see there. It's become a kind of quiet epidemic, a source of unrest inside, fueled by all the scrolling and all these societal whispers. The Stoics, the ancient Stoics, they actually diagnosed this turmoil. A long time ago, Marcus Aurelius wrote about it. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was pointing to a cure for the very comparison sickness that plagues us today. So this video explores that cure. We'll uncover specific Stoic principles, like the dichotomy of control and redefining success through a practical path, a way out of this cycle, and you'll get a framework. A complete framework to dismantle envy, to build unshakable self-worth from within. How is it possible that a 2,000-year-old philosophy holds the key to silencing today's noise? What if the problem, the root of the problem, is the very act of looking outward for validation? When was the last time you felt content, truly content with your own journey? Without glancing at someone else's path, the Stoics saw comparison as a kind of sickness, and they traced it back to a simple mistake. We've anchored our sense of worth in things we can't really control. We see someone's job, their house, the likes on a post, and we accept a premise without even thinking. We start to believe these external things are the real measure of a life. That's the disease, externalizing your self-worth. Epictetus, the teacher, drew a line right through this. He said some things are up to us and some things are not. What's up to us? Our opinions, our impulses, our desires and aversions, whatever is our own doing. That's the key phrase, our own doing. What's not up to us? Our body, our property, our reputation, our position, whatever is not our own doing. So your true worth, in this view, lies entirely in that first category. It's in your character, your courage when something difficult happens, your sense of justice in how you treat people, your temperance with your own desires, your wisdom in making a choice. These virtues, these reasoned actions, they're the only things that are completely, genuinely up to you. Everything else belongs to that second list. The job, the car, the applause online, it's not your own doing. It's subject to fortune, to chance, to other people's whims, and that's where the anxiety of comparison really takes root. We're trying to control ourselves by measuring things that are uncontrollable by nature. It's like trying to steady a boat by grabbing at the waves. You know that moment. Scrolling and you see a former colleague celebrating a promotion. The automatic reaction is a comparison, a silent question. Are they ahead of me? The Stoic shift isn't to deny you saw it. It's to redirect the question, turn it inward. Am I acting with integrity in my own work today? Am I being diligent with the tasks right in front of me? Am I treating people fairly? Those are questions of virtue. They're about what's up to you. The promotion, the title, the recognition, those are outcomes. They belong to what's not up to you. When you anchor your value there, you hand over the keys to your own peace. You make your self-esteem a hostage to fortune. So consider this. Where in your life do you most often measure yourself by these external benchmarks? Is it your career, always looking at the next rung on a ladder someone else built? Is it possessions or the curated family life you see in other feeds? Identify that one area. Just noticing where you've anchored your worth by mistake, that's the first step. And it's the most profound step toward pulling it back. The Stoics had a question for envy. Is this within my control? That's the core of their first tool, the dichotomy of control. It's a way to sort reality, to cut through the noise of other people's lives and focus your energy where it matters. Epictetus opens his handbook with this. He says some things are within our power and others are not. What's within our power, our opinion, our motivation, our desire, our aversion, whatever is our own doing. What's not within our power, our body, our property, our reputation, our position, whatever is not our own doing. When you feel that sting of comparison, you're usually looking at something from that second list. Someone else's property, their reputation, their position, things that are not your own doing. You're spending your mental energy on an outcome you can't command. The antidote is to turn your attention back to the first list, back to what is your own doing, your opinion about their success, your motivation in your own work. Your desire to improve or your aversion to the hard parts, that's your domain, that's where your power is. This isn't about being passive, it's the opposite. It's about focused action on the only ground you can win on, your own choices. Take comparing fitness. You see someone with a physique you admire and you feel a lack. The dichotomy asks you to sort it. What's not in your control, their genetics, their metabolism, the time they've already put in, their personal dedication. You can't control any of that. What is in your control? Your decision to go for a walk today, what you choose to eat at your next meal, your commitment to rest. Your consistency over the coming week. When you shift your gaze from their uncontrollable results to your controllable actions, the envy starts to fade. It gets replaced by agency. So think of a recent comparison that bothered you, a colleague's accomplishment or a friend's perfect vacation. Apply the filter. Write it down if you can. On one side, list everything about that situation that was not within your power. Their opportunity, their resources, their choices, the outcome itself. On the other side, list what was and is within your power, your reaction, your decision to learn from their path or not, your next step toward your own version of fulfillment. Just that act of sorting begins to break the spell. It returns you to yourself. The Stoics had this idea of the hegemonikon, your ruling center. It's like an inner fortress, a citadel for your mind, where your real judgments lie, your values, and they had this powerful truth about it. Nothing from outside can get in there unless you let it. No event, no one else's success, no opinion. That inner space is inviolable. What happens outside can't harm it. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He was an emperor under pressure every day, constant comparison. He'd write in his private notes, "You have a mind, a soul, a ruling faculty. Retreat into that territory. Don't be distracted. Don't be overwhelmed." That was his practice. When the world got loud, the politics, the rivalries, the praise and blame, he'd withdraw, not to a physical place, to that inner fortress. He'd remind himself. Tranquility comes from there. The value of his life wasn't in the ceremonies or the titles. It was in the quality of his thoughts, the justice of his actions. Inside that citadel, think about a time you felt overshadowed. A colleague gets public praise for a project, and a quiet voice says your contribution went unnoticed. The modern impulse is to feel diminished, to look for external validation to fix that feeling. The Stoic response is different. You turn and walk back through the gates of your own citadel. Inside, you ask different questions. Did I do my work with integrity? Did I collaborate fairly? Did I learn something? Your answers to those questions, they form the walls. The unshakable walls, the external praise or the lack of it, that's just weather outside. It might be pleasant sunshine or a passing storm, but it doesn't define the strength of the structure. By reaffirming your own standards, your own virtues, diligence, honesty, cooperation, you fortify the walls. Actively, you make the opinion of others irrelevant to how you assess yourself. So what does your inner citadel protect right now? Is its treasure your character, your commitment to growth, your kindness, or have you left the gates unguarded? Letting your sense of worth be vulnerable to every posted achievement you see, every new possession. The practice is a daily return, a conscious decision about what you let define you. When you feel that familiar tug of comparison, see it as an alarm, a signal to retreat, not into jealousy, into your own sovereign space, to check in with the only ruler whose opinion finally matters. The one you find when you're quiet and honest with yourself. That's how you build a self that comparisons can't touch. The cure starts when you notice the disease. The Stoics had a word for that, Prosoche. It's a deep attention, not passive, not daydreaming. It's an active guardianship of your mind, moment to moment. Like a sentry posted at the gate of your inner citadel, its job is to watch the thoughts that approach, to see them clearly before you let them in. Epictetus talked about this all the time. He said the first task, the most important task, is to test your impressions. Don't let an impression carry you away. Instead, tell it to wait. Let me see what you are. Let me see where you come from. That pause, that moment of seeing the thought as just a thought, that's the heart of Prosoche. It's the space between the impulse and your reaction. That's where your freedom is. Take comparison. You're scrolling and an image flashes by, a friend in a beautiful place, a smiling family photo. The automatic impression arrives instantly. Their life is more exciting, mine is lacking. Without Prosoche, without that sentry, that impression just marches right in. It becomes a belief. It stirs up envy or restlessness or sadness. You've assented to its judgment without a second thought. With Prosoche, you catch it at the gate. You notice the thought. Ah, there's a comparison. You acknowledge it. I see you. You label it. This is an impression about an external, about something not up to me. You don't fight it. You don't judge yourself for having it. You just observe it, and in that observation, its power starts to dissolve. It's just a mental weather pattern passing through. You are the sky, not the storm. This practice turns mindless scrolling into a training ground. You set an intention. Next time you open that app, let your primary goal be to watch your own mind. Not to consume content, but to notice your reactions to it. See the envy arise, see the admiration, see the boredom. Just note it. That's Prosoche in action. It's not about stopping the thoughts. It's about changing your relationship to them, from being swept away to being the one who watches the river flow. When you build this muscle of attention, something shifts. You start to see the machinery of comparison. You see the trigger, the habitual story, the emotional pull. And seeing it clearly, that's the beginning of freedom from it. You reclaim the authority to decide what deserves your mental energy. You learn that your peace isn't found in having better impressions than others. It's found in mastering your response to every impression you have. That's the quiet power of paying profound attention. You could learn to love the path you're on, even when it doesn't seem as glamorous. That's the idea of Amor Fati, the love of fate. Friedrich Nietzsche used that phrase later, but the heart of it is Stoic. It's the answer to comparison, because comparison is a rejection of your own fate. It's that quiet voice saying, my circumstances should be different. My story should look like theirs. Amor Fati changes that voice. This is my story. This is the material I was given, and I won't just bear it, I'll embrace it. I'll find the good in it because it's the only ground I have to build on. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to this. He didn't say love your fate exactly, but the feeling is all through his writing. He said a blazing fire makes flame out of whatever's thrown into it, and the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He was training himself to see every event, especially the hard ones, the setbacks, not as interruptions to his plan, but as part of nature's plan, as fuel for his own virtue. When you compare your life to another's and find it lacking, you're arguing with nature. You're saying the events in your life are a mistake. Amor Fati is deciding to stop arguing. To look at the tapestry of your life and say, this is mine, I'll work with these threads, make it practical. That feeling of being behind. Maybe your career took unexpected turns. It's not that straight, prestigious line you see on someone else's profile. The comparing mind sees only lack, a delayed timeline, missed chances. Amor Fati asks you to reframe it. This winding path, these detours, they weren't obstacles to your success. They were the training ground for a specific strength. While someone on a straighter road might have developed expertise faster, you were in the trenches developing patience. Resilience, adaptability, a broader view, these are virtues. They're the real internal goods no one can take. Your unique journey didn't deprive you of a standard success. It equipped you with a unique wisdom. To love your fate here is to appreciate that trade, to value the rugged terrain because of the stronger legs it gave you. So here's a quiet challenge. Identify one part of your current life you most often resist. An area where you habitually compare and come up short. It might be your finances, your social life, your health, your creative work. For a moment, suspend the judgment. Don't try to change it yet, just consider. How could this very circumstance be the perfect raw material for practicing a specific virtue? If it's a financial constraint, is it teaching you resourcefulness? If it's a quiet social life, is it creating space for deeper self-knowledge? If it's a physical limitation, is it cultivating patience or a new kind of courage? Amor Fati starts with this shift in perception, from seeing life as happening to you to seeing it as happening for your development. When you start to look at your own path not with resentment, but with a curious, even grateful eye, the need to look sideways at other paths just fades. Your own story becomes enough, more than enough. It becomes the only story that truly matters. Stoicism has this radical idea. The only thing that's truly good or bad is the quality of your character. Everything else is indifferent, and if you absorb that one thought, it dismantles the whole machinery of comparison because it changes the scoreboard. We spend our lives measuring ourselves against a list of indifferent things. Wealth, status, social media metrics, physical appearance. The Stoics called these preferred or dispreferred indifference. They can be useful or pleasant or difficult, but they are not good in themselves. They can't make you a good person. They can't corrupt a good person. The real good, the only good, is virtue, wisdom to see the world clearly, courage to act rightly despite fear, justice in your dealings with others, temperance in your desires. That's it. That's the entire list of things worth measuring. And when you internalize this, a shift occurs. You can't look at a billionaire and think, they are more successful than me. You can only ask, are they more virtuous than me? Are they wiser, more just, more courageous? Those are questions about their character, which is largely hidden from you. And more importantly, they are questions that turn you back to your own character. Comparison becomes a practical irrelevance. You can't measure your virtue against someone else's internal state. You can only audit your own actions, your own intentions, your own choices in this moment. Seneca wrote about this confusion. In his letters, he draws a sharp line. He says we admire the trappings of a life, the marble halls and the bustling servants, and we mistake them for the life itself. We see the gilded ceiling, but we never ask if the person sleeping beneath it is at peace. He urges us to strip things down to their essence, strip the senator of his purple robe, strip the wealthy man of his retinue. What remains? A human being. Judge that. Is he governed by reason or by passion? Is he a slave to his own appetites or is he free? That is the true measure. Consider two people you might know. The first has all the outward markers, a prestigious title, a large home, a vibrant social calendar, but to maintain this, they are consistently dishonest. They take credit for others' work, they manipulate conversations, their relationships are transactions. The second person lives modestly, their work is honest but not celebrated. Their home is simple, their social circle is small but deep. This person is known for their unwavering integrity. They keep their word when it costs them. They help without expecting anything back. They speak truth with kindness, which life is truly preferable. The modern metric, the one that fuels our scrolling envy, points squarely to the first. The Stoic measure, the one concerned solely with the good, points without hesitation to the second, because the first person, for all their indifference, is failing at the only thing that counts. They are building a life on a foundation of poor character. The second is building with the only material that lasts. So here's a quiet exercise, a way to transplant this idea from philosophy to your lived experience. Take a moment, write down your current, honest, personal definition of success. What does it include? Be specific. Now, with the Stoic lens in hand, edit that definition. Cross out every item that is an indifferent, every mention of salary, job title, possessions, followers, accolades. What is left? What remains when the only allowable goods are wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance? That refined list, that stripped-down core, is your new compass. It points away from the noisy marketplace of comparison and into the quiet territory of your own choices. It asks not what you have, but who you are becoming, and that is a question no one else can answer for you, and no one else's life can ever truly overshadow it. Picture the Earth from space, a blue sphere in the dark, all the land and water and clouds. Now try to find your own city, your street, the room you're in. From that far away, it all just disappears into the whole. That's the Stoic exercise, the view from above. Marcus Aurelius used to do this. He'd tell his mind to fly up, to look down on everything from a great height, see the human anthill, all the comings and goings, the brief marriages, the births, the deaths, empires that rose and fell, fame that flared up and was forgotten. And from there he'd ask, what is all the fuss about, all the striving for status, the envy over possessions? From that distance it looks like what it is. Fleeting, insignificant in the flow of nature. The only things that hold any weight from that perspective are the lasting qualities, how you lived, the character you built, the small acts of kindness you added to the common good. Those might be the only ripples that outlast your own brief splash. So when you feel that sting like a peer got the promotion you wanted, this view recalibrates everything. From the cosmic scale, the specific job title is just dust. What isn't dust? How you acted during the whole thing. Did you compete with integrity or with spite? Did you offer a real congratulations or nurse a quiet resentment? Did you keep doing your own work well, adding value to your small part of things? Those are the real metrics. They're about your virtue, your contribution. They're the only parts of the story with any lasting texture. Try it for a moment. Imagine your consciousness lifting up, out of the room, above the building, watching your town shrink to a patch of lights. Higher until the country is just a shape on the globe. See the whole planet turning in the sunlight. Now, from that quiet point of observation, look back at the thing that was bothering you earlier. That comparison that felt so urgent, so personal. See it placed against continents and oceans, against deep time and space. How does its size change? Its weight, its power over your peace. It doesn't mean your goals don't matter. It means they're put in order. It places your daily striving inside a context so vast it forces humility. And from that humility comes a real peace. You're freed from the exhausting work of measuring your speck of dust against someone else's. You're invited instead to tend to the quality of your own light. However small it seems, because in all that dark, every honest, good-hearted light matters. That's the view that cures comparison. It shows you what's truly large and what was only ever noise. The Stoics had this idea that to get what you want, you should want what you already have. It sounds like a riddle, but it's the center of their whole approach to desire. It's not about settling, it's not about giving up, it's a shift, a radical shift of your attention, away from what's missing, what you imagine is missing, and toward what's already there. What's present? Comparison works on a sense of lack. It's manufactured. It tells you that what you need is over there, in someone else's hands. The discipline of desire quiets that. By finding enough right here, Epictetus said it plainly. He said wealth isn't about having a lot. It's about wanting very little, and happiness, he said, starts there. With wanting what you have, not with getting what you don't. That flips everything. We put so much energy into wanting the next thing, the better job, the nicer car, the more impressive trip. And in doing that, we blind ourselves to the basic things we already hold: a body that can move, a mind that can read and understand these words, a friend's presence. The quiet of a morning, these aren't small, they're the substance of a life, but we treat them like background noise while we chase the melody of someone else's highlight reel. So practice, it starts with an audit, a deliberate audit of what's abundant. Each morning before the world's comparisons set in, take a quiet moment. Name 3 basic things you have. Say them out loud or write them down: a roof, the food for your breakfast, the ability to walk to a window and see the sky. The key isn't just listing them, it's to consciously desire them, to think, I want this shelter, I want this nourishment, I want this moment of awareness. Wanting what you already have is a muscle. It builds contentment, it weakens envy's pull. Then turn that outward for a second. What's one thing you have right now that someone else is probably comparing themselves to you for? It might be your free time, your specific knowledge, the stability of your routine, even the peace in your expression they see from the outside. Recognizing you are already someone else's benchmark, it shatters the illusion of lack. It shows that comparison is a hall of mirrors. Everyone's measuring against a reflection, never against the true, 3-dimensional reality of their own life. Your journey, with all its particular textures, its provisions, is already complete. The work isn't to get more scenery, it's to open your eyes and truly see the landscape you're already standing in. Remember, you're going to die. That's not a dark thought for the Stoics. It's their most practical tool for figuring out what matters. They called it Memento Mori. A meditation on mortality, and it's the ultimate equalizer. It cuts straight through every false hierarchy we build by comparing ourselves, because death comes for everyone. It doesn't care about your followers, your wealth, your fame. Holding that reality in your mind makes all that vain comparison seem absurd. It focuses you with a startling clarity on living well right now. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to this. In his private journal he wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, what you say, what you think." He wasn't being grim, he was using the shortness of life as a lens to bring his priorities into sharp focus. All the posturing, the political games, the wanting more status, seen through that lens, it lost its grip. What was left? The chance to be a good person in the time he had, to act with justice, to think clearly, to accept his place in the flow of things. This reflection can change a moment of envy instantly. You see a neighbor's new luxury car and the old habit of comparison starts up. But then you apply the Memento Mori lens. You ask, will this person's car matter on my deathbed? Will my not having it be a regret? The answer is almost always a quiet no. Then you ask the other question, what will matter? Will the memory of my kindness matter? Will the integrity I showed in my work? Will the love I gave to my family and friends? Those answers come back with a profound yes. This meditation doesn't kill ambition. It clarifies it. It separates the trivial pursuits, the ones fueled by wanting to outshine others, from the essential ones, fueled by wanting to live well. So here's a quiet, powerful prompt. If you knew you had 1 year left, what comparisons would instantly lose their power over you? The jealousy over a colleague's corner office, the anxiety about your social media following, the restless want for a bigger house. These would just fall away, revealed as the distractions they are. What would rise to the surface instead? The unfinished conversation with someone you love, the project that actually expresses your voice, the simple wish to be present, to be grateful, to be at peace with yourself. Memento Mori isn't about death, it's about life. It's the practice that pulls your attention back from the endless, exhausting game of measuring up, and places it firmly on the quality of your own character in the time you're given. It asks the only question that finally matters, not are you keeping up, but are you waking up to the life you actually have? We can look up to someone without feeling worse about ourselves. The Stoics thought so, but it means shifting how we see them. It's not about imitation, it's about inspiration. The difference is in what you're looking at. You can see someone as a rival for things, a promotion, recognition, some external prize. Or you can see them as a guide for something internal, for your own development. Unhealthy comparison is all about outcomes. It sees their success, their platform, their results. And it measures your lack. It turns life into a race for trophies. Trophies you can't really control. The Stoic approach is different. It looks past the trophy. It studies the discipline that earned it. It ignores the applause and listens for the character behind the action. That changes everything. It turns admiration from a source of envy into a source of fuel. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius. He wasn't writing to boast about his wisdom or his status. He was offering a model, a companion on the path. He shared his struggles, his reflections, his daily practices, all to say, here is a way you might walk too. The goal wasn't for Lucilius to become a copy of Seneca. It was for Lucilius to find his own virtue, guided by the example. The focus was always on the quality of the action, not the worldly result. So how do you make this practical? Start with a role model, someone historical or someone in your life. When you learn about their achievement, pause, stop the automatic comparison, ask a different question. Don't ask, why don't I have that? Ask, what quality did they demonstrate that I can learn from? If you admire an entrepreneur's success, look for the perseverance they showed through early failures. That's a virtue you can practice today in your own challenges. If you admire an artist's beautiful work, look for the discipline of their daily practice. That's a pattern you can emulate in your own craft. You're not chasing their outcome, you're adopting their process, which is a matter of your own choice and effort. This reframes everything. Every biography, every news story, every social media post. It stops being a rival's highlight reel. It becomes a potential lesson in virtue. You see a colleague handle a difficult client with remarkable patience. The old script whispers, they're better at this than I am. The new script asks, how can I cultivate that same patience in my next difficult conversation? The first thought steals your energy, the second one returns it to you with a clear task. So take a quiet moment, name one person you genuinely admire. It could be a historical figure like Marcus Aurelius, a teacher, a family member, or a public figure known for their integrity. Now go deeper. Identify one specific virtue they exemplify that resonates with you. Is it their courage to speak an unpopular truth? Their unwavering justice in how they treat people, their profound resilience after a loss? That virtue is the real gift of your admiration. It's not a benchmark to feel small against. It's a compass point, showing you a direction for your own growth. Your journey isn't to reach their destination. It's to walk your own path with a little more of that same strength, starting with your very next step. The Stoics had this practice, Premeditatio malorum. The premeditation of troubles. They used it like a vaccine against distress, and you can apply it to comparison. It's not pessimism, it's preparedness. You rehearse a challenge mentally before it shows up, so when it arrives, you're not surprised. You've already walked through your response. Seneca did this all the time. He would deliberately think about future setbacks, a loss, an insult. By facing them in his mind first, he took away their surprise, their power to shock his peace. He wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and Premeditatio fixes that imagination. It trains you to meet reality with reason, not a raw reaction. So apply this to envy. You know the triggers: a work announcement where a colleague gets celebrated, a social gathering where old friends share their latest wins. The moment you open an app and see a curated highlight of someone's perfect life, instead of waiting for that sting to hit you unprepared, you premeditate it. You sit in a quiet moment and deliberately call the scenario to mind. You imagine the notification popping up. You picture the image, the caption. You feel that initial, automatic clench of comparison in your chest. That's the first step. You don't avoid the feeling, you invite it in for practice. Then you deploy your prepared response. You apply the dichotomy of control. You sort the scene, what's not up to you, their good news, their moment, the attention they're receiving. You mentally place those in the external category. What is up to you, your judgment of the event, your decision to see it as a personal slight or as a neutral fact, your choice to offer genuine goodwill or to retreat into resentment. You anchor yourself there. Next, you invoke Amor Fati. You look at this imagined event and you affirm it. This, too, is part of my fate. This moment is not an obstacle to my peace. It is the raw material for practicing my virtue. It's the chance to exercise generosity of spirit, to practice justice by celebrating another's good fortune as if it were my own. You mentally rehearse that internal shift, from seeing their success as something that diminishes you to seeing it as something that tests and strengthens your character. Here's a brief rehearsal. Imagine a specific friend or acquaintance sharing exciting news with you directly. They got the dream job. They're moving to the city you love. They achieved a goal you've also been working toward. See their happy face, hear their voice, notice the first flash of heat, the tightening in your stomach, the comparison. Now breathe and insert your reasoned voice. This is their path, their fortune. My path is mine and it is good. My worth is not threatened by their joy. My task is to be a good friend, a good human in this moment. I choose to offer a sincere congratulations. Feel the difference between the automatic reaction and the chosen response. That space you just created, that's the vaccine taking effect. So before your next vulnerable moment, premeditate it. Is there an upcoming family reunion where conversations might drift toward comparisons? A planned scroll through a site you know triggers your insecurities. Pick one. Sit with it for just a few minutes today. Walk through the scenario in your mind from trigger to reasoned response. By inoculating your mind with this rehearsal, you weaken envy's bite. You transform a potential attack on your peace into a routine exercise for your character. The event itself may still happen, but the distress, the turmoil, that becomes optional. The Stoics had a concept, Oikeiosis. It means appropriation, making something your own. And they applied this to how we see other people. It starts naturally, small. A baby knows its own hand, its own mother. But as we grow, as reason develops, that circle should get wider. What we consider our own, from just ourselves to family, then to community, and finally to all rational beings, to see everyone as kin. That's the core of their idea of cosmopolitanism. Being a citizen of the world, not just your own tribe. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings no benefit to the bee." He saw humanity as one organism, a single body. Each person is like a limb or a cell of that body. So from that view, a co-worker's success isn't a threat to you. It's a strengthening of the whole body you're a part of. Their good fortune becomes a shared good. Their setback is a shared concern. It changes the math of comparison. Envy works on a finite pie. If their slice is bigger, yours is smaller. But Oikeiosis shows something else. In terms of character, of shared well-being, the pie isn't finite. Their virtue, their happiness, their contribution, it doesn't shrink what's available. It makes more for everyone, because a world with more capable, good people in it is a better world for you too. It lifts everyone. Take a practical case. A colleague gets the promotion you wanted. The usual reaction is a private sense of loss, feeling overlooked. The competitive mind says they won, I lost. But a mind trained in this asks different questions. Is this person capable? Will they do good work in the new role? Does their success help our shared project, our team? If yes, then their advancement is also your advancement. You're part of the same entity. To resent it is irrational. Like your left hand resenting your right hand for being good at writing, it hurts the whole body, so the task shifts from jealousy to practicing a virtue. Justice or goodwill. Justice means giving each person what they're due. Here, your colleague is due a sincere congratulations. Goodwill means actively wishing for their success. Seeing it as a common good, this isn't about suppressing a feeling, it's about cultivating a truer one based on a more accurate view. We are connected. So here's an experiment. Next time you feel that hot pinch of jealousy, seeing a friend's vacation photos or a peer's milestone, pause. Before the story of lack takes over, insert one deliberate thought. Try to genuinely feel goodwill for them, wish them well, even if it feels forced at first. Notice the shift inside, however slight. That act of reframing from rival to kin is you practicing Oikeiosis. You're stretching your sense of self to include them, and in doing that, you aren't losing ground. You're building a wider, more solid home for your own peace. The Stoics weren't trying to be richer than other people. They were after Eudaimonia, a flourishing life, and that has a very specific source. It doesn't come from outside. It's not something you collect, it's a state you cultivate from within. The ancient Greek word for this is arete, excellence or virtue, but it's not a moral checklist. It's the full expression of your nature as a rational, social being. To live with arete is to live in harmony with reason, to act with courage, justice, wisdom, temperance. And from that consistent practice of excellence, Eudaimonia follows. It's the deep contentment of a tree growing strong according to its own nature, not straining to be a different tree. This is the ultimate antidote to comparison, because your flourishing is tied to your character, and your character is yours alone. No one can outperform you in being you. No external event, no rival's achievement can strip you of your capacity for courage today. They can't confiscate your ability to act with kindness in the next hour. Your access to wisdom, to justice, isn't a limited resource they can deplete. Since Eudaimonia springs from this internal well, it can't be diminished by another's external gains. Their new car doesn't make you less courageous. Their larger audience doesn't shrink your capacity for integrity. Your source of contentment is insulated by its nature from their journey. Aristotle influenced this idea, but the Stoics took it further. For them, virtue wasn't just the best path to happiness, it was identical to happiness. To live with excellence was to be happy, regardless of external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire, and Epictetus, born into servitude, were pointing to the same inner citadel. The throne and the chains were both indifference. The real kingdom was the quality of their minds. So picture two people now. The first spends an hour scrolling. They see perfect vacations, professional triumphs, happy families. With each swipe, they measure their own quiet evening, their challenges, their ordinary life against these highlights. A low anxiety builds, a sense of falling behind. Their mind is in a state of restless negotiation with realities that aren't even their own, now the second person. They also see those images, but their primary focus is different. It's internal. They're reviewing their own day. Did they speak with honesty in a difficult meeting? That was an act of courage. Did they listen fully to a friend in need? That was kindness, justice. Did they choose a healthy meal over an impulsive one? That was temperance. Their mental energy is spent auditing their own arete, their own alignment with reason. Who is truly flourishing? The first person, even with many external advantages, is adrift in a sea of comparison. The second, regardless of material circumstances, is anchored in the practice of their own humanity. This invites a quiet assessment. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current sense of flourishing? But here's the filter. Base that number not on your bank account, your job title, your relationship status. Base it solely on the quality of your character over the last week. How consistently did you choose reason over reaction? How often did you act with fairness? When fear showed up, did you move forward with it? This score, this internal measure, is the only one that points toward eudaimonia. It's the only one that, when you work to improve it, actually builds a life of unshakable contentment, a life where comparison loses its meaning because you're playing a different game entirely. The Stoics were realists. They'd point out that we're always comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel, and that's where their discipline of assent matters. That pause before you accept an impression as truth. What we see online, a career announcement, a smiling family photo, it's a curated impression, a single frame picked from a long, messy, unedited film of a life. Our mistake is to assent to that without question, to judge it as the full reality. Epictetus warned about this. He said, "Don't be disturbed by the mere appearance of things. They aren't what they seem." A vacation photo shows a beautiful beach. It doesn't show the argument in the taxi to the airport, or the stress of the work left behind, or the sunburn that came later. A promotion announcement radiates success. It hides the months of doubt, the sleepless nights, the compromises, the support system that made it possible, or the personal cost that came with it. The Stoic asks us to see the impression for what it is, a partial snapshot, a performance, and to withhold final judgment about the reality it represents. Because we don't have the full story, this isn't cynicism, it's clarity. It's refusing to let a crafted image dictate your inner state. Think of the last time you posted your own highlight. Maybe it was a happy moment, a celebration, but in that moment were you also carrying a quiet worry, a fatigue, a private challenge the caption didn't capture? Your own highlight reel was by necessity an edited version of a much more complex truth. Now extend that understanding outward. Every polished image you see is someone else's edited version. The perfect home comes with a hidden mortgage or a lonely quiet. The vibrant social life might mask a deep need for approval. The flawless physique is maintained by a rigid discipline that excludes other joys. When you compare your raw, unscripted reality to these polished final cuts, you're setting yourself up for a loss in a game that isn't even real. So here's a quiet reflection. Recall one time when your own outward presentation, your own highlight, was radically different from your internal experience. You smiled for a photo while your heart was heavy. You accepted congratulations for something that felt hollow inside. You posted about an achievement while grappling with imposter syndrome. Remember that gap between the appearance and your lived truth. Now hold that memory and let it soften your gaze the next time you're tempted to measure your life against another's curated post. See it not as their superior reality, but as their chosen impression. Your own behind the scenes isn't evidence of failure. It's the authentic, unedited material of a human life, and that's the only material from which genuine character and genuine contentment can ever be built. To build immunity to the fear of missing out, the Stoics would practice missing out on purpose. They called this Askesis, a kind of training. It was scheduled exposure to a simpler life. A way to toughen the mind against the pull of luxury or status. Like a vaccine, you take a tiny, controlled dose of the thing you're afraid of going without, so when life gives you a bigger dose, your peace is already there. Your happiness isn't chained to the comfort you might lose. Seneca did this. He had enormous wealth. He was an advisor to the emperor, and still he would set it aside sometimes. He'd eat plain food, wear simple clothes, sleep on a hard bed. He wrote to his friend Lucilius about it. He said, "Set aside a certain number of days where you live on the cheapest fare. The scantiest. Why? To prove it to yourself through experience that a happy life doesn't depend on abundance, that what you fear about lacking something, it's bearable. More than bearable, it can clear your head." This practice attacks comparison at the root. When you choose a modest meal voluntarily, you're showing your own mind that your well-being isn't held hostage by gourmet food. When you take a cold shower, you're proving comfort is optional, not essential. You're rehearsing your freedom. The person who needs a luxury car to feel successful is vulnerable. Their self-worth is tied to that object. The person who has practiced doing without, who knows they can be content on a bus or a bike, has cut that chain. The car becomes a preference, not a requirement for their identity. Other people's abundance stops being a threat. It's just a different choice in what the Stoics called the marketplace of indifference. So how do you start this now in a safe way? The goal isn't hardship for its own sake. It's conscious simplification to build resilience. You might use an older, slower phone for a full day. Notice the impulse to check for updates. Sit with the feeling of being disconnected from the stream. You might take public transport instead of driving. Immerse yourself in the shared, uncurated reality of a community instead of the isolated comfort of your car. You could fast from social media for a weekend. Replace the scroll with a walk, a book, a face-to-face talk. Each one is a small, voluntary step back from a comfort you depend on. In that space, you meet yourself. You see the itch of wanting, the habit of comparison, and you practice not scratching it. You prove your independence. What's one small, voluntary discomfort you could introduce in the next week? It has to be safe, and it has to be a choice. Maybe a digital sunset, turning off all screens 2 hours before bed. Maybe a meal of simple, whole foods without the usual distractions. Or wearing your most comfortable, least impressive clothes on a day you might see people you want to impress. The act itself is less important than the intention behind it. You're not depriving yourself, you're vaccinating your contentment against the fear of lack. And with each small practice, the glittering world of comparison loses a little more of its power to tell you how to feel. When you compare, is it about judging or is it about understanding? That question, it draws a line. On one side, there's the comparative mind. It labels, it ranks. On the other side, there's Stoic practice. It's quieter. Understanding becomes the default, not judgment. This isn't just a word swap, it's a full reorientation. How you relate to other people's stories changes, and then how you relate to your own. Judgment is a quick, emotional reaction. You see an outcome, a promotion, a family photo, some acclaim, and the mind just slaps a label on it. Good, bad, better, worse, deserved, lucky. That judgment, it's a closed door. Inquiry ends. You can feel superior or inferior, envious or dismissive, all without knowing the full story. It's a shortcut. It bypasses reality. Understanding is the rational alternative. It asks different questions. What led them here? What's their nature? What unseen pressures were there? What sacrifices? What unique context shaped this? That line of questioning, it opens a door. It replaces competition with curiosity. The illusion breaks. You're not looking at a simple, comparable result anymore. You see the complex human process behind it. You stop measuring the tip of their iceberg against yours. You start wondering about the vast structure underneath the water. Marcus Aurelius trained in this daily. In his meditations, he'd remind himself, consider the upbringing, consider the unseen pressures of the person irritating you. He wrote that when someone seems to do you wrong, immediately consider what notion of good or evil they were acting under. For them, it seemed right. This wasn't about excusing poor behavior. It was about understanding its cause. See the action as a product of their beliefs, their upbringing, their limited perspective. That stripped the personal sting out of it. He replaced this person is bad with this person is acting from a mistaken belief. That shift drained the emotional poison. It allowed a response with clarity, not reactivity. Apply it to a modern trigger. Someone gets rapid, visible success in your field. The judgmental mind has a script. They got lucky, they had connections, it's not fair. That script breeds resentment, a sense of powerlessness. It places their success in the realm of magic or privilege. Entirely outside your influence, now engage the understanding mind. Ask new questions. What specific skills did they cultivate that I might not see? What sacrifices did they make with time, comfort, personal life that I am unwilling to make? What unique perspective did they bring to a common problem? These questions don't assume their path is right for you. They just seek the causes, and in seeking causes, you reclaim agency. You move from spectator of their fortune to student of their process. You might find a tactic to adapt, or you might reaffirm that your own values, your own trade-offs, lead you on a different but valid path. Either way, the comparison loses its bitter edge. So here's a quiet exercise. Bring to mind one person you habitually compare yourself to, someone whose life or achievements trigger that silent measurement. Now generate 3 understanding-based questions about their journey, not judgments, inquiries. For example, 1. What early influences or mentors might have shaped their confidence or direction? 2. What's one significant challenge they likely faced that isn't part of their public story? 3. What core need or value do you think their current path is fulfilling for them? Sit with these questions. You don't need the answers. The power is in asking them. This act of deliberate curiosity starts to dismantle the flat, judgmental portrait you've been carrying. It repaints that person in 3 dimensions, with a history, a context, a humanity that mirrors your own, and in that richer picture, the simple, anxious arithmetic of comparison just no longer applies. Society's measure of enough is always just out of reach. Stoicism asks you to define your own. That's the final step. It turns all the theory into something solid. You stop chasing a horizon that moves. Every advertisement moves it, every new model, every social update. You decide rationally what sufficient means for your life. The Stoics drew a bright line here between what's natural and what's vain. Natural needs are simple: food for nourishment, water for thirst, shelter for safety. Basic clothing, community for our social nature. These are limited. They have a clear point of satisfaction. Vain desires are endless, the luxury brand. The excessive square footage, the latest gadget, not for utility but for status. These are inventions of opinion. They have no natural limit. Seneca saw this. He watched the wealthy of Rome in their perpetual anxiety. He wrote that riches have shut off many a man from the very thing they were supposed to bestow. Peace of mind. Why? Because if your measure of enough is tied to luxury and display, you'll never reach it. There will always be a more exclusive brand, a larger estate, a newer trend. You're in a race where the finish line is painted on the back of the person in front of you. Defining your own enough is an act of rebellion. It's you reclaiming your judgment from the marketplace. It starts with a simple exercise. Take one category of life. Let's use housing. On one side of a page, list the natural needs. What does shelter truly need to provide? A safe, dry, temperature-regulated space for rest and family life. Access to water and sanitation. Perhaps space for meaningful work. That's the core, that's the need. Now, on the other side, list the vain desires attached to it. The specific postal code for prestige. The extra bedroom that will never be used. The gourmet kitchen for a person who cooks simple meals. The architectural details chosen purely for impressing guests. The need side has a clear ceiling. The desire side is a bottomless well. Your personal enough point exists at the moment the natural need is met. Everything beyond that is a preference. A choice. It may be nice, it may be enjoyable, but it is not necessary for your flourishing. It is an indifferent, and seeing it as such, as something you can take or leave, that's what breaks the spell. You're no longer striving for a bigger house because society says that's success. You're choosing with clear eyes whether a particular feature adds genuine value to your life or if it's merely a trophy for an invisible audience. Apply this to transportation. The natural need is reliable, safe movement from point A to point B. The vain desires the specific luxury badge, the horsepower you'll never use. The color chosen to signal something about yourself. The new model year when the old one functions perfectly. Your enough point might be a safe, fuel-efficient car, or a public transit pass and a good bicycle. The moment you define that for yourself, every car advertisement transforms. It stops being an aspiration and becomes merely an option. An option you are free to politely decline. So here's a task. Choose one area of your material life where you feel the pull of comparison most sharply. It could be your wardrobe, your technology, your home decor, your entertainment subscriptions. Perform the exercise. List the natural, limited needs on one side. List the endless, vain desires on the other. Then, in a quiet sentence, write down your personal enough point. This is not a life sentence of austerity. It's a declaration of freedom. It says, past this line, I am choosing. I am not being chased. When you know where your enough point is, you can enjoy the indifference beyond it without being owned by them. You can appreciate a fine meal without needing every meal to be fine. You can admire a beautiful home without believing your peace depends on replicating it. You step off the treadmill and you find the ground beneath your feet is and always was enough. You can't feel envy and gratitude at the same time. One pushes the other out. That's the actual fight. Envy is looking at what you don't have compared to what someone else does. Gratitude is looking at what you already have, and Stoicism turns this into a daily practice. It's a tool to redirect your attention, to pull it away from the shiny things you compare yourself to, and to anchor it in what you already possess. When you practice gratitude, you're not just being nice. You're taking over your own thinking. You're choosing a story of having enough over a story of not having enough. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning. In his private notes, he described a ritual. He'd think about the people he was going to meet, the stubborn ones, the ungrateful ones, the arrogant ones. And then he'd say this, I can't be angry with my own kind, we're made to work together. And before he faced them, he'd give thanks to the gods and to the people around him for what he'd received. He was setting his mind to see abundance, not lack, to see connection, not competition. This wasn't a spiritual exercise, not like we think of it. It was psychological preparation. By starting the day acknowledging what he had, his health, his reason, the air he breathed, he strengthened himself against the day's inevitable annoyances and comparisons. He made his default state one of possession, not want. The practice works because it changes your perspective. Gratitude makes you take stock of what you have. And to a Stoic, your biggest assets are often the things you take for granted. Your senses working, your ability to learn, the simple fact you woke up with a mind that can think. These are real gifts. When you list them, when you actually feel their weight, that new car your neighbor bought starts to get smaller in your mind. It doesn't vanish. It just becomes one small thing in the wide landscape of your own good fortune. Their advantage seems less important to your happiness because you've just reminded yourself of all the sources of happiness you already have access to. So make it concrete. A nightly gratitude journal is one way, but go past the general. Instead of writing I'm grateful for my family, look at it like a Stoic. Note one thing that was enough today. My simple meal was enough to nourish me. This quiet hour was enough to think. My modest home was enough to keep me dry in the rain. Then go a step further. Name one thing you have that you know for sure someone else might genuinely not have. It could be something basic like clean water, or the safety of a peaceful street, or the ability to read. This isn't about feeling better than someone. It's about creating a clear, honest contrast that breaks the illusion you're deprived. It shows that to much of the world you live with immense privilege. That realization takes the power out of envy. How can you envy a bigger television when you're actively grateful for the peace and security that lets you own any television at all? Before we move on, try the prompt right now. In your head, list 3 specific things you're grateful for that have nothing to do with status or money. 1. The feeling of sun on your skin. 2. the memory of a conversation where you felt truly understood. 3. The ability to taste your favorite food. Sit with that list for a few seconds. Feel the change inside. The space that was filled with wanting is now, even for a moment, filled with fullness. That small, deliberate act is the antidote. It's the daily practice that turns the cure for comparison from a philosophy into something real. Social media is about highlight reels. Stoicism is about the whole arc of a life dedicated to virtue. That's the shift. One is a snapshot, a single frame pulled from a long film. The other is the entire story. And if you judge a life by snapshots, you miss the plot. The Stoic project was never a single victory. It was a lifelong apprenticeship in being human. A daily, gradual return to reason, to justice, to courage. You can't measure that in a moment. You only see its shape over decades. A single achievement, a flashy possession, it's meaningless. Outside the context of the character that earned it, or the use it's put to, a dishonest person can win a prize. A cruel person can amass a fortune. The snapshot looks impressive. The arc of their life tells a different story. Seneca wrote about philosophy as a way of life, not a subject for debate. In his letters, he called it a long training. We are apprentices, he said, in learning how to live well. Every day is a lesson. Some days you master a small piece of patience. Another day you practice courage. In a difficult conversation, the goal isn't to post a certificate of virtue. It's to become, slowly, a person whose inner life matches their highest principles. This long game makes the short-term comparison seem trivial. Why be envious of someone's promotion this quarter when you're building a character that will define you for a lifetime? Their snapshot is a data point. Your arc is your legacy. Consider 2 life arcs as a thought experiment. The first is a story of quick, brilliant fame. Early success, public acclaim, wealth, but this path is built on shifting sand, compromised ethics, neglected relationships, a growing inner emptiness masked by external noise. Over time, the character erodes. The person becomes isolated, defined by their need for the next hit of validation. The final chapters are often marked by loss. A profound sense of loss despite all the trophies. The second arc is quieter. It's a story of steady, deliberate work, modest gains, private struggles. Deep commitments to family and community. There are few viral moments, but over the decades, this person cultivates a reputation for unwavering integrity. They are known as someone who keeps their word, who shows up in hard times, who acts with quiet courage. Their life is a tapestry of small, consistent acts of virtue. Which life is the better measure? The snapshot culture would have you believe the first arc is the obvious winner. The Stoic, looking at the whole story, would choose the second. Without hesitation, because the quality of a life is found in the quality of the person living it, not in the brightness of the spotlight that happens to fall on them. So here's a question to sit with, one that stretches your gaze from today's scroll to the horizon of your own story. Looking back on your life in 20 years, what character traits would you be most proud to have cultivated? Regardless of the external markers, not the job titles you held, but the diligence you brought to your work, not the size of your home, but the warmth and safety you built within it. Not the number of followers, but the depth of your compassion, the strength of your honesty. When you orient your daily efforts toward building those traits, the need to compare your current snapshot with anyone else's, it just loses its urgency. You are playing a different game on a much larger field, and every small choice for integrity today is a brick in the foundation of a life you can look back on. Not with envy for others, but with a quiet, unshakable respect for yourself. Turn the comparison engine into your Stoic gym. It's a drill. You use the source of your envy as the material to build immunity. A structured practice, turning a mindless scroll into a training session for your character. The ancient teachers would have seen this as the perfect opportunity. Epictetus said difficult circumstances show what you're made of. For a philosopher, a troubling impression is just training material, so we take that literally. We make the social feed that material. Here's the practical framework. Before you unlock your phone, you set a clear intention. That's the most important step. You say to yourself, my goal for the next 5 minutes isn't to consume content. It's to observe my own mind. I'll watch impressions arise. I'll practice not being carried away by them. You're the scientist, your reactions are the data. Now open the app, begin to scroll, but slowly, deliberately. When a post lands that triggers that familiar pinch a friend's trip, appears milestone, you pause. You breathe, that's the space between the impression and your ascent. In that space, you label the thought. You say, this is an appearance of success. This is an impression of lack. Just naming it begins to separate you from it. Next, apply a Stoic principle immediately. The most direct one is the dichotomy of control. Ask yourself, what here is up to me? Their vacation, their achievement, their likes, these are not up to me. They're externals. What is up to me? My judgment of this post. My decision to feel diminished by it or to just observe it. My choice to offer a silent wish for their well-being or to scroll past with neutrality. Anchor yourself in that second list. You can also apply the view from above. See this single post for what it is, one tiny pixel on the vast screen of a human life. From a cosmic distance, this achievement, this sunset, is a beautiful but fleeting speck. What would matter from that height? The character of the person posting, maybe. Or more importantly, the character you're building right now by choosing your response. Then you move on, you don't dwell. You've processed the impression with reason and you release it. You scroll to the next post and repeat the drill. Observe, label, apply, release. The goal isn't to feel nothing. The goal is to change your relationship to the feelings that arise. To move from being a passive victim of algorithmic envy to an active practitioner of your own peace. Try this for just 5 minutes next time. Keep a simple note in your mind or on paper. How many triggering impressions arose? How many times did you successfully pause and apply a principle? Don't judge yourself for failing. Each impression, whether you reacted automatically or responded with reason, is part of the training. This is how you rebuild your neural pathways. You're not avoiding the modern world. You're learning to walk through its fire without getting burned. The Stoics gave everything they had. But they always added a silent condition. If nothing stops me, they called this the reserve clause. It's a mental formula for effort. You commit to the action completely. But you hold the outcome lightly. You do your part with total focus, while understanding the final result isn't yours to command. This is how you detach from the outcomes we use to compare ourselves. When you compare, you're almost always comparing outcomes, their promotion, your application still pending, their published book, your manuscript in progress. Their relationship milestone, your current solitude. The reserve clause inserts a pause, a rational one. It reminds you that you only ever owned one side of that equation. Your effort, your intention, the outcome belongs to a different category. It's subject to chance, to timing, to other people's decisions, to the complex web of fate. Seneca wrote about this. He said the wise person plans their life like a voyage. A captain intends to reach a port. They plot the course, they prepare the ship. They gather the crew, but they know a storm may arise or contrary winds. So while they direct the ship toward the port, they do not say, I will arrive there. They say, I intend to arrive there if nothing hinders me. That if is the reserve clause. It's not doubt, it's wisdom. It's the recognition that our control has a boundary. We are responsible for steering, not for the weather. When you internalize this, the emotional charge around comparison dissipates. You see someone else dock in the harbor you were aiming for. The old, untrained mind cries out, why them and not me? The mind practiced in the reserve clause responds differently. I steered as well as I could. The winds favored their ship today. My task is to check my charts and sail on. Their arrival is not a verdict on my navigation. Take a job application. The modern, comparative mindset ties your entire sense of worth to the outcome. You submit the application and your mind fastens onto the offer. It plays a movie of getting it and a movie of being rejected. Your peace becomes hostage to an email you cannot send yourself. The Stoic approach changes the commitment. Using the reserve clause, your goal is not to get the job. Your goal is to apply with diligence, to prepare for the interview with clarity and honesty. To present your skills as they are, you do all of that with your whole heart, and you add silently if the hiring managers see a fit, if the timing is right. If nothing prevents it, the offer is now in the realm of what is not up to you. It is preferred, but it is an indifferent. When a peer gets the position instead, you are protected. You can audit your own actions. Did I do my part with excellence? If yes, then you have succeeded in the only arena where success was ever possible. Their outcome does not negate your virtuous effort. In fact, you can genuinely wish them well because their good fortune does not steal anything from you. Your worth was never stored in that title. It was expressed in the character you showed while pursuing it. So here's a quiet exercise to make this real. State a current goal, something you are working toward where comparison might creep in. Say it out loud or write it down. Now restate it with the Stoic reserve clause. Not I will get that promotion, but I will work with diligence and integrity toward that promotion if nothing prevents it. Not I will find a partner, but I will be open, kind, and authentically myself in my interactions if nothing prevents a connection from forming. Hear the difference. The first version ties your happiness to a future event you cannot guarantee. The second version anchors your happiness in the quality of your present actions, which you can. This clause is not a recipe for half-hearted effort. It is the precondition for wholehearted effort, the kind that doesn't destroy you if the world doesn't comply. It allows you to engage fully in the marketplace of life. To strive and build and create, while keeping your inner citadel secure. You are no longer gambling your peace on a roll of dice you cannot throw. You are investing it in the one thing that always yields a return. Your own reasoned choice in this very moment. The Stoics viewed the universe as one living organism. In an organism, the foot doesn't envy the hand, the lung doesn't resent the heart. Each part has its function. The health of one supports the life of the whole. They called this Sympatheia, a deep interconnectedness. Everything in the cosmos is woven together, breathing as one. Your life isn't a separate island. It's a thread in a vast, living tapestry. And when you see that, the math of envy shifts. Another person's gain isn't your subtraction. In a unified system, their flourishing can mean more life for the entire network, more vitality for the whole. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to this. He wrote to remember the interwoven unity of all. What brings benefit to the whole brings benefit to the part. We are branches of the same tree, leaves touched by the same air. Our shared reason is the sap that connects us. To feel jealousy toward another is as irrational as your left hand plotting against your right. It's a failure of vision, a forgetting of our fundamental kinship. We mistake our individual roles for separate destinies, but we are collaborators in a single, grand project. The project of a rational, flourishing world. Think of a healthy forest. The tall oak doesn't waste energy comparing its canopy to the young maples. The fern doesn't resent the wildflower for its splash of color. Each grows according to its nature, in the soil and light it's given. The oak provides shade and stability. The fern retains moisture, the flower feeds the bees. Their differences aren't grounds for competition. They are the mechanisms of mutual support. The entire ecosystem thrives because of this diversity of roles. Not in spite of it, our human communities are meant to operate on the same principle. the artist, the teacher, the engineer, the caregiver. Each expresses a different facet of our shared human nature. When the engineer invents something that improves lives, the whole community benefits. When the teacher inspires a young mind, the future of the entire forest is enriched. To look at the engineer's patent or the teacher's influence and feel personally diminished is to see yourself as a separate, rival tree in a different forest. You've forgotten you're part of the same root system, so here's a quiet contemplation, a way to feel this truth, not just understand it. Look at your own life. Identify your unique role in the human ecosystem right now. It might not be grand or loud. Perhaps you are the one who listens patiently, creating calm in your small circle. Maybe you are the one who maintains order and reliability in your work, a steady rhythm others depend on. You might be the one asking thoughtful questions, or creating small moments of beauty. How does this specific role of yours contribute to the health of the whole? Does your listening allow others to feel seen? Does your reliability free others to take creative risks? Your contribution, however quiet, is a form of photosynthesis for the social body. It turns your unique energy into something that sustains others. And when you focus on the value of that contribution, not its rank, not its visibility, the need to compare its shape to someone else's role just vanishes. You are no longer in a race, you are in a symphony, and your note, however soft, is essential to the chord. Sometimes the most stoic thing you can do is just turn away. To make some silence where there's always noise, it's not hiding, it's more like a strategic retreat, a deliberate step back from that endless flow of information and images, the stuff that feeds the comparison machine in your head. You step out of the marketplace of opinions so you can actually hear your own, because the world's chatter is loud, it's persuasive, and it's always measuring. Telling you what you should want, what you should fear, who you're supposed to be, and in all that noise, your own inner voice, the one guided by your reason, your values, it just gets drowned out. You can't really audit your impressions if you're constantly collecting new ones. You can't know what you truly think if you're only ever reacting to what other people are showing you. Seneca understood this. He actively praised solitude. He praised retreat. He wrote that we have to give ourselves space to untangle ourselves from the crowd. To become, again, our own person. He saw those quiet periods not as idleness but as essential maintenance for the soul. It's in the quiet that you sort through the impressions you've gathered. You examine them without the pressure of the next notification. You ask which of these judgments are actually mine, which desires were planted there by an algorithm designed to create longing. This retreat is how you reclaim your hegemonicon, your ruling center. It's how you dust off your own compass after letting the magnetic pull of everyone else's north distract you. So make it practical. This isn't some grand, lifelong vow of silence. It's a scheduled practice, a digital Sabbath, one full day a week where you consciously disconnect. From all social feeds, from news cycles, from the endless scroll, or maybe it's a weekend without any news consumption. The goal isn't to be uninformed forever. It's to break the addictive cycle of reactive consumption. You could start even smaller. Just mute the accounts even of people you like, that most reliably trigger that sense of comparison. Not out of malice, but out of care for your own mental ecosystem. You create a curated silence, and the space this opens up is profound. It's not filled with emptiness, but with a different kind of sound. The sound of your own inner dialogue, the questions that matter to you, not the ones trending online. The quiet appreciation for the room you're in, the book in your hand, the walk you can take without documenting it. In that space, you remember what it feels like to be bored, and from that boredom often comes a genuine curiosity about your own life. You might pick up a long-forgotten project, or just sit and think without an external stimulus telling you what to think about. This is where self-reliance gets rebuilt. Not in the noisy proving ground of public opinion, but in the quiet workshop of your own mind. So here's a direct prescription, a single manageable experiment. This week, schedule 1 hour, just one, of complete disconnection from all media. No phone, no podcast, no background television. Go for a walk without headphones, sit with a notebook, or just stare out a window. Your only task is to be alone with your own thoughts. Notice the initial itch to reach for a device. Observe the impulse to fill the silence, and then let the silence remain. See what thoughts rise to the surface when they aren't being constantly pushed down by a new input. That hour is your strategic retreat. It's your training ground for hearing yourself again. And in that hearing, you'll find a clarity that no amount of scrolling can ever give you. An oak tree doesn't waste its energy wanting to be an eagle. It just focuses on being an oak. Its nature is to put down deep roots to give shelter, to grow strong right where it is. And the eagle's nature is different, to ride the wind, to see from way up high. Neither one is better in the larger order of things. Each one is just doing its own job perfectly by being completely itself. That's the Stoic idea of living in agreement with nature. It's the final cure for comparison. Our nature as rational beings comes with a specific set of circumstances. Specific talents, specific opportunities. That's the raw material we were given. And to constantly compare ourselves to other people, to wish for their soil or their sunlight or their shape, that's a deep rejection of our own nature. It's refusing to play the part written for us in the bigger story. The Stoics called this our telos, our purpose. Living in agreement with nature meant two things. First, living in harmony with the universal nature, the rational order of everything, and second, living according to our individual nature, our own unique constitution. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this all the time. He wrote, "What is it in yourself that you need to perfect?" Because he was an emperor. His nature demanded leadership, demanded justice, administrative wisdom. His brother's nature might have demanded something else entirely. The goal was never to swap roles. It was to excel in the one he was born to play, and to do it with virtue. When we envy someone else's path, what we're really saying is the universe made a mistake with us. We're arguing with our own fundamental design. Take the classic modern comparison, career paths. A dedicated teacher looks at the salary and status of a corporate CEO and feels that pang of inadequacy. The comparative mind shouts they are more successful. But the mind aligned with nature asks a different question. It asks, what is my specific nature? The teacher's nature might be wired for patience, for explanation, for the slow, rewarding work of building understanding. Their specific circumstance, a classroom, that's their unique arena for virtue. Right there, they can practice immense patience every single day. They can exercise justice in how they treat each student. They can cultivate wisdom and share it. The CEO's arena is different. Their virtues are tested in boardrooms, in large-scale strategy, in managing stakeholders. To wish for the CEO's role when your nature is that of a teacher is like the oak wishing for wings. You'd abandon your own deep, grounding strengths just to clumsily imitate a form that isn't yours. Your opportunity for excellence, for arete, lies in mastering your own terrain. So here's a quiet question, a way to turn that envy into focused development. What are two unique capacities or circumstances of your nature that you can develop instead of wishing for someone else's? Look at your own life, not as a lesser version of someone else's, but as a unique set of materials. Maybe your capacity is a keen attention to detail, something other people find tedious, but it lets you create order and clarity. Your circumstance might be a flexible schedule that gives you time for deep study, or for caring for a family member. Those aren't limitations, they're the specific contours of your plot of earth. Your virtue will grow from tending this plot, not from gazing longingly at a different landscape across the fence. The oak becomes superb by reaching its branches toward its own sun, by sinking its roots into its own soil. you find your flourishing not in becoming someone else, but in becoming fully and excellently who you already are. The raw feeling of envy for the Stoics wasn't a sin, it was misdirected fuel, that sharp sting you feel. It's not useless, it's information, it's your own desire pointing at something. But we usually let it point outward at the person who has the thing. The Stoic move is to turn that arrow around, to point it at the quality behind the thing. Envy signals a desire for something we think is good. So the first question is always, is this a true good? Is it virtue, or is it an indifferent? If you envy someone's calm under pressure, that's a clue. You're seeing a form of courage, a mastery of internal reaction. That is a true good. Your envy is pointing you toward a virtue you wish to cultivate. The fuel is now yours to use. Your task shifts from wanting their specific outcome to wanting their specific strength. You can emulate that quality. You can't copy their exact circumstances, but you can practice your own version of calm the next time you feel rushed. If you envy someone's new car, that's different. The car is a preferred indifferent. It's not a good in itself. The envy here is pointing at a mistaken judgment. You've labeled an external object as a source of happiness. The Stoic response is to let that judgment go, to see the car for what it is, a tool, a temporary pleasure. The fuel of that envy is best spent not on wanting a car, but on examining why you attached so much value to it. What story are you telling yourself about what that car means? Seneca offered a lens for this. He suggested we can learn from everyone, even from people we might dislike. He wrote that we should walk through life as if we were in a great crowd of potential teachers. That boastful person, they teach us what temperance looks like by showing us its absence. That patient mentor, they show us the shape of courage in action. When you feel envy toward someone, you've just identified a potential teacher. The question is, what exactly are they teaching you? Is it a lesson in a virtue you lack? Or is it a lesson in the emptiness of chasing externals? So you make it a ritual. First, you feel the envy, that hot, tight feeling. Instead of spiraling into a story of lack, you pause. You create that space between impression and assent. In that space, you ask the question, what do I truly admire here? Be honest. If it's their luxurious vacation, ask again. Is it the travel itself I admire, or the freedom it represents? If it's freedom, is that freedom a result of their discipline with money, their willingness to prioritize experiences? Now you're getting closer to a quality. Once you identify a quality: discipline, creativity, resilience, you make it actionable, not tomorrow, today. If it's discipline, commit to one disciplined act before the sun sets. Finish that task you've been avoiding. If it's creativity, spend 20 minutes on your own project. You are taking the energy that was poisoning you with comparison and channeling it directly into your own growth. You are performing an alchemy, turning the lead of envy into the gold of self-improvement. Here's an exercise. Get a piece of paper. Recall one specific instance of envy from the last week. Write it down in one sentence. I felt envy when I saw my friend post about their new job. Now draw 2 columns. In the first, write the external thing. Describe the object of envy, the job title, the recognition. In the second column, write the admirable quality. Look past the thing. What human quality did that person likely use to achieve it? Was it diligent study? Courage to take a risk. Write that down. Finally, at the bottom of the page, write a single, small action. Something you can do in the next 24 hours that embodies that quality in your own context. If you wrote courage to take a risk, your action might be to send an email you've been hesitating on. The action completes the circuit. It proves to your own mind that the value was never in their thing. It was always in the strength required to get it, a strength you are now cultivating. This is how envy stops being a source of pain. It becomes a compass for your own becoming. Can you be ahead or behind right now? Or can you only be virtuous or not? That question, it just dismantles the whole structure of comparison, because to feel ahead or behind, you need a timeline. You need a past to regret or a future to worry about. That feeling can't exist in the pure present. And the Stoics, they were clear. The present moment is the only arena where life actually happens. It's the only place your will can operate, where your character gets expressed. Everything else is a story, a ghost from memory, or a phantom from what might come. Marcus Aurelius kept drilling this into his own mind. He wrote that you should confine yourself to the present. You can give up the past, and you can hand the future over to Providence. He said it another way too, more blunt. He said each of us lives only now in this brief instant. The rest has either been lived already or it's impossible to see. His whole practice was a continual return, coming back from the sprawling territories of time to this tiny, sovereign kingdom of the now. That's where your power is. Not in the decade you think you wasted, not in some milestone 5 years out, but in the next breath and the choice that comes with it. Think about how comparison works. It's never about the present. You see a peer's achievement and your mind races backward. Why didn't I start that sooner? Then it jumps forward. Will I ever catch up? You get pulled out of your own life, out of the only moment you can ever actually inhabit. You're pulled into a mental movie where you're always the supporting character in someone else's story. The Stoic cure is a gentle, firm hand on your shoulder, guiding you back. It says the work is here, the virtue is here, not in their past or your future, but in the quality of your attention to this sentence, this email, this conversation, this breath. You can feel this in a simple work task. You're writing a report and a notification pops up. A colleague has published an article and it's getting praise. The comparing mind hijacks the process. It starts narrating. Their writing is better. My ideas are smaller. I'm falling behind in my field. Your focus shatters. You're no longer writing the report. You're arguing with a ghost in a hypothetical race. The Stoic response isn't to fight the thought. It's to notice you've left the arena and to return. You look back at your own document. You feel the keyboard under your fingers. You see the words you've already written. Your task is not to be better than someone else. Your task is to be clear, to be thorough, to be honest in this paragraph right now. That shift from competing in a story to crafting in reality, that's how you reclaim your energy. Your worth isn't decided in the global rankings of your imagination. It is built brick by brick in the integrity of each present moment action. So here's a direct challenge. A 5-minute experiment in reclaiming your arena. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Choose one simple present moment task. It could be washing the dishes, feeling the warm water, seeing the soap bubbles, placing each plate carefully in the rack. It could be drinking a cup of tea, noticing the warmth of the mug, the steam, the flavor on your tongue. Your only job is to keep your attention here, and you will fail. Your mind will wander. It will drift to a comparison, a worry, a plan. That's fine. That's the practice. Each time you notice it has wandered, you have succeeded because you have noticed, and in that noticing, you gently, without judgment, guide it back. Back to the sensation of the water, the taste of the tea. You are training the muscle of presence, and in that trained presence, the noisy, anxious world of comparison has no place to stand. It just evaporates because it requires a past and a future to exist, and you are living fully in the only time that is ever real. The Stoics said you could live without being moved by praise or blame. They called both of those things externals. They're indifference. They're just opinions from other people. They swirl around you like weather, but they aren't you. They aren't under your control, and if you tie your sense of worth to that, you give away your peace. You become a puppet. Every compliment pulls a string. Every critique pulls another. So much of our comparing comes from that. This deep hunger for approval, this fear of censure. We look sideways to see if we're measuring up to the applause. But the Stoics were clear. Your moral worth comes from one place, your own reasoned choice, right now, not from the volume of the noise around you. Epictetus put it directly. If someone provokes you, your mind is complicit. It's your own judgment about the criticism that stings, not the words. He told his students, when you go out, you'll meet meddlesome people. Ungrateful people, arrogant people, but you don't have to be affected by them. They can't touch your mind. Your ruling center stays your own, unless you give it away. Unless you value their opinion above your own reasoned assessment. Marcus Aurelius had to remember this. He lived in the spotlight of imperial power. He wrote that soon you'll be nobody and nowhere, and so will the person praising you, and the one blaming you. The applause dies, the crowd moves on. To build your home on that sand is to guarantee collapse. Think about social validation now. You craft a post, a piece of work, an idea. There are two possible reasons for sharing it. The first is rooted in that hunger, the hunger for praise, the avoidance of blame. You pick the topic you think will get the most likes. You word it to avoid controversy. You watch the notifications. Your mood rises and falls with each one. A critical comment ruins your day. That entire cycle is a form of slavery, slavery to external indifference. The second reason is Stoic. You share something because you believe it's true, or helpful, or just. You've examined it with your own reason. You offer it as your reasoned action. Then you release it. The likes, the shares, the angry comments, those are now in the category of things not up to you. You've done your part with integrity. The reception is just data, data about the world's reactions, not a verdict on your worth. Your worth was already secured. It was secured in the act of choosing to share something you stood behind. So take a quiet moment, recall a specific memory, a time you felt genuinely hurt by criticism or deeply elated by praise. Sit with that memory for a breath. Now apply the Stoic lens, see the event again, but this time mentally place the words of praise or blame in a box. Label it external opinion. See them as sounds that entered your ears. Data points from another person's mind. Your worth in that moment, the part that was truly you, was your character, how you acted before the comment, how you chose to respond after it. If you could separate those two things, the external noise and your internal choice, how would the memory change? The sting or the thrill might not vanish, but it would lose its power to define you. It becomes a passing cloud, a cloud in the sky of your character, which remains vast, untouchable. This is the quiet liberation of indifference. It doesn't make you cold, it makes you unshakable, because your center of gravity is finally where it always belonged, within. The Stoics wrote philosophy. They kept journals. That's where you take your comparisons apart. It's like a lab, a private space. You take the messy reactions from your day and you put them under the light of reason. The point isn't to write something beautiful. It's to perform an autopsy on your own impressions, to see what went wrong, to get ready for a better response tomorrow. This nightly review was a core Stoic practice. Marcus Aurelius left the most famous example. His meditations were never meant to be published. They were his personal journal. Written during war, politics, immense pressure. On those pages he argued with himself. He reminded himself of principles. He took apart his own anger, his vanity, his moments of fear. He was his own teacher and his own student. Writing was the tool for that conversation. The process is straightforward. At the end of your day, you take a few quiet minutes. You open your notebook, you review the day in reverse like rewatching a film. Your task is to look for the moments where comparison tugged at your peace. When did you feel that pinch? Was it seeing a former classmate's career announcement? A twinge during a friend's vacation story? Noticing the likes on someone else's post? You write it down plainly. Today, I compared myself to my colleague about the recognition they received. Just naming it brings it out of the shadows, into the light where you can look at it. Then you examine the impression. You ask it the Stoic questions. First, was the impression true? was the story I told myself about their success and my lack an accurate picture. Almost certainly it was a partial snapshot, a highlight reel. You note that, then you apply the dichotomy of control. What in that situation was truly within my power? Their achievement was not, the attention they got was not. What was within my power, my judgment of the event, my choice to feel diminished, my decision about how to act going forward. You write this sorting out. Finally, you plan your response. This is where you turn theory into future action. You identify the Stoic principle you forgot. Maybe you forgot the reserve clause and tied your happiness entirely to an outcome. Maybe you neglected the view from above and magnified a single event. Then you write a simple, actionable note for tomorrow. Tomorrow, when I feel that comparison arise, I will pause. I will remind myself that their path is theirs and mine is mine. My worth is in my diligence today, not in yesterday's applause. I will mentally wish them well and return to my own work. Here's a simple template for 3 nights. Today I compared myself to X regarding Y. The Stoic principle I forgot was Z. Tomorrow I will remember to fill in the blanks with utter honesty. No one else will see this. The value is in the clarity, not the poetry. Commit to this for just 3 nights. Let your sole focus be those moments of comparison. Don't worry about other flaws or triumphs. Just track that one thread. You will start to see patterns. You'll identify your most vulnerable triggers. You'll catch your mind's favorite misleading stories. And each night, by writing a plan, you are programming a wiser response for the day to come. This journal isn't a record of failure. It's the blueprint for building your inner citadel, one examined thought at a time. Your life is a symphony, and you're the conductor. Comparison is when you turn away from your own music to listen to another orchestra. The Stoics had this idea, the highest good, the Summum, Bonum. It's about mastering your own instrument, playing your part in tune with universal reason. And it's not just a single note of courage or a moment of temperance. It's the whole composition of your existence, harmonized from within. When your inner life is arranged around virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, moderation, then the jarring notes of comparison can't find a place to resonate. Their foreign sounds, your peace becomes self-generated, a melody that plays no matter what noise is in the concert hall around you. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Think only on what's in line with your principles, what can bear the full light of day. And your character will come to resemble your thinking. That's the Summum Bonum in practice. A life where every thought, every impulse is filtered through reasoned virtue. Until the whole symphony plays in a coherent key, your inner world stops being a cacophony of competing desires. It becomes an ordered arrangement where each element supports the whole. You know this feeling in glimpses. It's that state of being completely engaged in a meaningful task, a virtuous task, where comparing yourself to someone else doesn't even occur. You're a teacher fully present with a student who finally grasps a difficult concept. In that moment, your entire being is focused on sharing understanding. An act of justice and kindness. The symphony of your mind is playing that one rich chord. There's no mental bandwidth left to wonder if another teacher is getting more recognition. Or you're a craftsman sanding a piece of wood to perfect smoothness. Your attention is wholly on the justice of the craft itself, doing the work well for its own sake. The outside world, with all its rankings, falls silent. That absorption, that alignment of action with your deepest principles, is the Summum Bonum in action. It's the sound of your own symphony playing uninterrupted. So consider this quiet contrast. On one side, there's that familiar feeling of constant comparison. The restless, anxious static, the mental scrolling through other people's scores, the tightness in your chest, the narrative of lack. Now, on the other side, describe what inner harmony would feel like for you. Not as a vague ideal, but as a tangible state. Would it be a steady calm in your stomach when you see another's success, a lightness in your shoulders freed from the weight of measuring up? A clarity of mind that sees other paths as simply different, not as threats. That feeling, that specific personal sense of internal accord, is the destination. It's the silent space where your own music is the only sound that matters. The journey from comparison to contentment isn't a single pill. It's a complete shift in perspective. A philosophy for living. You move your focus away from the shifting sands of external things, the jobs, the accolades, the possessions, and you anchor it in the solid ground of internal virtue. That's the core of the Stoic cure. Your true worth isn't something you find in the world's applause. It's something you build within your own character, moment by moment. You learn to sort reality with the dichotomy of control. You learn to love your own path with Amor, Fati. You define your own enough in a world of endless want. And you see the power of practices, mindfulness to catch the comparing thought, journaling to disarm it. These aren't just ideas, they are tools, forged in ancient wisdom, but designed for the quiet anxieties of modern life. To walk this path is to build an inner citadel, a place so strong the noise of comparison can't breach the walls. Marcus Aurelius, under immense pressure, wrote a line about this resilient peace. He said, very simply, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That strength is the destination. It's the quiet contentment of a life lived on your own terms. Measured by your own virtue, the challenge is to make it real. This week, choose one principle. Maybe it's applying the filter of control the next time envy stings. Or practicing gratitude each night for what you already have. Or writing in a journal to examine one comparison. Commit to that single practice for the next 7 days. Let it be an experiment in freedom. We'd like to hear which idea resonated most. Share your chosen principle in the comments. We can build a community, supporting each other in this practice of turning inward. Finding our strength where it has always been. If this guidance was valuable, consider subscribing. Together, we can keep exploring this timeless philosophy for a more grounded life. Your journey toward unshakable self-worth begins with your next choice.